Good day, CrimeTalk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is CrimeTalk. We have a big show for you today, and it's going to be great. First, Chad Daybell's attorneys had a hearing today regarding some deadlines to make their ineffective assistance of counsel claims. The Nevada public servant who allegedly killed a reporter is going to go to trial next week. Let me explain how not to seek closure in a relationship. We have some stories about a bad cop or two, an update on a teen that frankly just needs to be in prison. A sleepy little town has their first murder in 21 years, and it's a doozy. This is what you get when you decapitate your wife. A teenager being tried as an adult. Does he deserve it? And a dumb criminal update and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
Hi, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, and make sure you hit that little bell so that you get notifications of when we go live or put up new content. All right, couple of things first. We got to pay a couple of bills. How do we do that? We have sponsors. Go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, all right? Sign up for that background subscription service today. Well, what do you need a background subscription service for? Well, if you're going to be bringing someone new into your life, if you're going to be dating, don't commit dating malpractice by not checking them out. When you go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, you're going to be able to simply type in a name. They'll ask you a couple of questions. A background search is done literally while you're waiting, and it will be emailed to you. And hopefully it comes back completely clean. And guess what? You can cancel at any time. So whether you want to do one background search or 500, that's what you can do while you have that background subscription service. CrimeTalkSearch.com. You'll be happy you did. We've had too many cases of dating malpractice that we talk about on stories. You don't want to be a story on Crime Talk. Go to CrimeTalkSearch.com. All right, let's go ahead and get to the docket today. It's a big one. August 7th, 2024. First on the docket today, Chad Daybell had a hearing. Now, he wasn't there. It was on Zoom, but we brought it to you live, and you can check it out. And his new attorneys want an extension in which to file their motions. They're still getting up to speed on the case and frankly haven't even reviewed the transcripts, although they did produce a 200-page document explaining why they need more time and the issues involved. Now, you may say, well, what's the big issue? Just do the transcript, do the appeal, right? Well, it's going to take time. And this is what's different on a death penalty case. A lot of states have adopted a system whereby if somebody gets the death penalty, instead of immediately just going to the appeal and starting that process, and then when the appeals are exhausted at the state court level, then you go back and then you begin the ineffective assistance of counsel claim. Now, a lot of states say, let's do this all at once. So instead of going to the appellate process, the attorneys are appointed. They then investigate and file their petition for basically ineffective assistance of counsel. And the new attorneys for Chad Daybell did bring out that there was virtually no mitigation done whatsoever. Now, I'm sure there was, but hey, what are you going to say about Chad Daybell? He's a really nice guy until he killed his wife and, married another woman and killed her kids too. Everything was good up until that point, but we're really only there about up until that point. So anyway, that's what the attorneys are already saying is that Mr. Pryor was ineffective counsel for Chad Daybell, and they want to be able to add more time. The problem is in Idaho, for these attorneys, there's various statutory time limitations that need to take place. So they were asking for more time. The prosecution also needs to file their responses because basically it turns into a civil proceeding at this point, is the way it was explained in the hearing. And so there's a lot of things going on, but everybody's agreeing they need more time. Pryor's new attorneys and the state are going to file kind of a joint motion. The judge then has to file basically a request to the Idaho Supreme Court to get permission to grant more time, which undoubtedly they will. But this is what we anticipated all along. We knew that there were going to be ineffective assistance of counsel claims anytime you lose on a big case. Mr. Pryor's problem is we don't know exactly what he did, but he didn't present any mitigation. That may have been at the client's request for all we know. But the point is, it's going to take time. It's going to take years. And we're going to see a knockdown drag out. Now, here's always the interesting things when it comes to post-conviction relief. The prosecution and the defense didn't particularly get along with Mr. Pryor, right? The prosecution didn't exactly get along with Mr. Pryor. Now, they, being the prosecution, are going to have to defend everything that Mr. Pryor did and say that he was the greatest attorney ever to step foot in the state of Idaho, and that Mr. Pryor could have got no better defense. Frankly, I think he did a pretty good job with what he had to work with. But it's the post-conviction attorney's job to try and get a new trial, or at a minimum, vacate the death penalty. Their goal is not to get Mr. Pryor released. Their goal is to avoid the death penalty. Mark my words, ladies and gentlemen. Next on the docket, a former Clark County official charged with killing a Las Vegas journalist is ready to stand trial next week. We believe we're going to be able to bring you that trial next week. So attorneys for both sides, the prosecution and the defense, told Judge Levitt they were ready to proceed to jury selection starting at 1 p.m. on August 12th in the case against Mr. Robert Tellis. Now, prosecutors told the judge they have 20 witnesses for the case, while the defense said they have 12 witnesses to call. The trial is estimated to last about 10 days. Now, as you may recall, we brought you the story when it first broke, but Mr. Tellis is charged in the 2022 murder of Jeff German. He was kind of a veteran reporter out there, covered politics, covered corruption, etc. Anyway, it's alleged that, Mr. Tellis killed Mr. German. Didn't do a really good job of covering up his disguise that he had, and I anticipate a guilty verdict. Anyway, we'll bring it to you live starting Monday. We'll see where it goes. Next, this is not a way to seek closure in a relationship, all right? A 19-year-old woman in Florida is facing multiple felony counts after she allegedly hospitalized her former boyfriend's new girlfriend when she showed up at the boyfriend's home unannounced and stabbed the new girlfriend in the chest with a pocket knife. Now, Emily Morales thought that this was a way of bringing closure. Well, she's been charged with 1 count of aggravated battery and assault with a deadly weapon, and 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Now, police showed up at the residence about 9 p.m. on July 31st to a home in regards to a stabbing that was reported. Upon arrival at the house, the first responders located a 22-year-old female bleeding from what appeared to be a stab wound. The emergency medical personnel immediately transported the victim to the hospital. She was considered to be in critical condition with 2 stab wounds and immediately underwent emergency surgery. Now, the victim's 26-year-old boyfriend explained that he and the victim were in a relationship, and the two were hanging out in the kitchen at his mother's home, where he also resides. Red flag there, ladies. 26, living with his mom. Go figure. Anyway, he and his new girlfriend hear a loud knock on the front door. He looked through the windows, sees the silhouette of his old girlfriend. Guess what? The boyfriend then says, I need to go tell my mom that the old girlfriend is upset and she's outside. While at about the same time, new girlfriend goes to the front door and opens the door, whereupon they all heard a lot of screaming and commotion, and where the new girlfriend yells, "That dumb biatch stabbed me." Well, Miss Morales, the old girlfriend, allegedly attempted to stab the boyfriend before fleeing on foot as well. And of course, what happened? What can be predicted? That's right, it was captured on a Ring doorbell camera. Needless to say, the police said that the footage shows the commotion at the front door between the two women, and then skips forward when the victim can be seen collapsing in the living room and bleeding profusely from her chest. Ms. Morales appeared to be holding a knife in the footage, and the boyfriend's mother was in her bedroom when her son approached her and told her, "No, don't worry about it. He's got the situation under control." No, Mr. 26-year-old boyfriend living at home, you don't have the situation under control. You never had it under control. That's probably why you're living with your mom at 26, and the old girlfriend is coming over to stab the new girlfriend. Somehow I think this is the way you run your life. Anyway, the police ultimately went to the old girlfriend's house, Ms. Morales' address, and they found her and took her into custody. Now, of course, Ms. Morales, maybe not a watcher or subscriber of CrimeTalk, talked to the police and said, hey, we were in an on-again, off-again relationship, and that, yes, they had gotten into an argument earlier that day, probably because she found out there was a new girlfriend. Anyway, she also claimed that the boyfriend had previously threatened to have the victim, the new girlfriend, beat her up. So Morales went there for closure. Do you bring a knife to closure? I think you bring a knife to a fist fight. Anyway, Miss Morales ultimately told the police that she took an Uber to the boyfriend's residence, where she observed the victim's vehicle in the driveway before she knocked on the door. She admitted she became verbally aggressive toward the new girlfriend, and the old girlfriend explained that the new girlfriend squared up, at which time she retrieved her folding knife from her pocket and swung it at the victim. That's right, you don't want to jab, you want to do with a slash. Anyway, however, it's believed to have been a lower abdomen strike, and that's why she was holding herself. Now, the old girlfriend said she fled the scene, running through the backyard and tossing the knife into the yard that was scattered with a bunch of junk. She's currently being held without bond. Can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. Dating tip, ladies and gentlemen, go to crimetalksearch.com. If you find out your 26-year-old boyfriend resides with his mom, red flag, just saying, red flag. Next, we've got a couple of bad cop stories. This guy, Nathan Latham, has resigned, and the city is still investigating the incident that brought him to attention. Now, Mr. Latham, former police officer, resigned after an uproar over his pointing a gun at a local woman by the name of Beth Delama. Now, Miss Delama was arrested and hit with a felony charge of fleeing in a vehicle recklessly, and she was in jail from Thursday to Monday when a judge finally dismissed the charges against her. Mr. Lanham showed no regret as he laid out his side of the story in a criminal complaint, saying it all was kicked off when he pulled Miss Delama over and asked her for vehicle registration, driver's license, and proof of insurance. Now, when Ms. Delama said the documents were at her house, Mr. Lanham claimed he told her he'd be towing the car and she couldn't leave. That's when things got a little out of hand and escalating, which ended with him body slamming Ms. Delama on the ground and cuffing her as she screamed for help. Now, Ms. Delama said that she wasn't sure if he was a real police officer, and when asked to see his badge, things went from bad to worse. What can you say, ladies and gentlemen? Bad cops. At least he resigned. Maybe he'll be charged. Next, another bad cop. Check out this guy. Bond was set at $100,000 for a Meridian police officer charged with statutory rape. Now, you would think that Lieutenant Kevin Michael Boyd, who was arrested, who's obviously been placed on leave after his arrest yesterday, which was based on the investigation that followed a complaint filed by a Child Protective Services Department back in May. Now, the lieutenant has a court date in March of 2025. What? Are they going to let him retire or something? But here's what I want you to take a look at. Take a look at this guy's booking photo. Look at his shirt. Okay, he's been placed on leave, but take a look at this booking photo. His shirt says hashtag FOMO, fear of missing out. What should it be? It should be hashtag FAFO. And if you know, you know. All right, next on the docket, this kid, I think, he needs to go to prison. Okay, we brought you this story. We've discovered it quite a bit early on. But remember this kid, he pummeled his teacher after she took away his Nintendo Switch. Well, now he's been sentenced to 5 years in state prison as an adult. So Brendan Deppa, who was 17 at the time of the beating, tackled his teacher's aide, a woman by the name of Joan Nidich, who was 59, I might note, back in February of 2023, and unleashed dozens of punches on her body and her head, leaving her seriously bruised and unconscious lying on the floor. Now, Mr. Deppa, at the young age of 17, was 6'6", 270, and guess what? He'd become an adult since the pending of this attack was perpetrated in high school, so he's going to be sentenced as an adult. Now, he pled no contest to the aggravated battery charge against him back in October and was originally going to be sentenced in May of this year. But the judge delayed the hearing so he could hear more from the victim. Now, the most crucial testimony came from Miss Nidich herself, who told the court that Brendan Deppa's actions that day has caused her to lose her job and that she had that job for nearly 19 years, lost her financial security, as well as her health insurance. Now, Miss Nidich, who is a mother of two, has previously called for the teenage attacker to be locked up for the maximum sentence of 30 years. However, the judge decided not to do that, okay? He got 5 years instead. And Mr. Deppa's attorneys laid out quite the argument for him, as well as his mother laid out some exculpatory testimony on his behalf. Now, Leanne Deppa, who's the adoptive mother of this young man, said that she had warned the school about her son's laundry list of triggers. That's right. Hey, I warned you. It's your fault he attacked somebody. According to the mom, electronics was his biggest trigger. That's right. Apparently you don't tell a 6'4", 270 teenager that he can't play his Twitch anymore. So anyway, she claims that I had told the school that being hungry was a trigger, that noise was a trigger, that being told no was a trigger, that being corrected in front of other people was a trigger, and electronic was a huge trigger, his mom testified. Wow. Could you imagine going to school and getting hungry, being told no, being corrected in front of other students, and not having your electronics when you should be focusing on school? Could you imagine? I don't know about you, but if that was his triggers, maybe she should be at home and not putting the public at risk. Think about that. Anyway, lawyers representing Mr. Deppa had filed a separate lawsuit alleging the school district was negligent, where they described Mr. Deppa as a ticking time bomb. That's right. It's your fault for not doing something with the ticking time bomb. When you are forced to take these ticking time bombs into school, ladies and gentlemen, think about that. You must educate the children, regardless of their situation. Even though everybody says and warns you there's a ticking time bomb, yeah, we're going to sue you when the ticking time bomb goes off. That's the world we live in today, ladies and gentlemen. So basically on the attack, Miss Nidich requested another teacher take away Mr. Deppa's gaming console, and so therefore it was her fault. That's what the defense said. Anyway, when Mr. Deppa found out, he allegedly called her the biatch word and the whore word and spat at her as she left the classroom. And then, as you can see from the video surveillance, that's right, he chases her down and beats her to a bloody pulp into the ground. Miss Nidich was completely limp after she was knocked to the floor, and then Mr. Deppa didn't quit punching her until he hit her in the head and back at least another 15 times. She had 5 broken ribs, a concussion, a loss of hearing. That's right. She had gashes on her cheeks, bruising around her eyes, a bloodshot eye, a dent in her nose, and a tear at the back of her ear. Miss Nidich said the worst injuries are the internal ones, and the attack has deeply affected her cognitive functions. Like I said, Mr. Deppa's attorneys tried to turn it around on her, claiming that Nidich failed to address the autistic boy's unique needs and wasn't properly trained to handle him. The attorneys basically said the assault was a manifestation of the young man's disabilities. It's not his fault, his attorney said. Well, the judge didn't buy that completely, citing the brutality captured on the video and that Mr. Deppa's attack on Miss Nidich was not an isolated incident. It captures the senseless, extreme violence and is very troubling, the court commented. And at his sentencing, the judge also cited testimony from a state witness, a psychologist, who said Mr. Deppa knew what he did was wrong. Mr. Deppa's mom begged for him to be sent home, but her son is being sent to prison. And of course, the mom says that it is all because of racism, or it could be the assault. Anyway, the judge did order the Florida Department of Corrections to conduct a full mental health evaluation for Mr. Deppa and try to develop a plan for his disabilities because, yes, he is going to get out one day, so we should probably try to fix him. But like I said, Mom says it's all racism. I don't think race had anything to do with the punishment of the woman that was beat unconscious for dealing with a disruptive student in school. Say what you may, I don't know. Violent crimes like that, somebody needs to go to prison. I get the kid's got issues, but guess what? Everybody's got issues in life. Everybody's got triggers, and you can't go around beating the crap out of people because they get triggered. Next, a small town has their first murder in 21 years, and it's a doozy. So a man allegedly killed his father and left his organs outside his body in what his defense attorneys called a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions, which was also a sleepy Connecticut town's first murder in more than 20 years. Now, police responded to a caller who claimed to have hurt his father as a resident in Ridgefield, Connecticut, about 1 a.m. on Saturday morning. When officers arrived, they were greeted by Stephen Uricchio, who was outside the house with his hands in the air and wearing a dark blue shirt and boxer shorts. The police instructed the defendant, who was sweating profusely and appeared to have a lot of blood on his hand, to walk forward with his arms extended. The defendant then said, "Oh, by the way, I murdered him," and then replied, adding that he had killed the older man really, really bad. Needless to say, when the cops went upstairs, they entered the house, and where they supposedly found drops of blood on the stairs and some more blood on the walls. There was also a bloody fillet knife at the top of the stairs, where they found the father of the defendant, Mark Ichiro, who was 83, lying on the floor in his bedroom. Needless to say, he was pronounced dead on the scene. Now, the son, the defendant, was taken into custody on murder charges. That's the first murder in that little community since 2003. Oh, once again, the defense attorneys wanted to let you know that the defendant had a significant mental health history, and they, along with the prosecution, requested and the judge ordered a competency evaluation, some mental health evaluations, and a continued suicide watch. Nothing's anybody's fault anymore, ladies and gentlemen. And don't get me wrong, I've been doing this for a long time. But sometimes you got to admit that you did something wrong and stop blaming everybody else. You'd be surprised. If you go back and look at the 12 undeniable truths of life from a criminal defense attorney, one of them is the words, "I'm sorry." You'd be surprised how far those words can go, not only in life, but the courtroom as well. Next, another bad guy. A Texas man who pled guilty to the murder of his young wife was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Please meet Jared James Dykes. He was given a lengthy sentence by the district court judge after confessing to the police last year that he beheaded his wife of less than 4 months. His wife's name was Angie Diaz. Hey, I guess when you know, you know. I guess he's bringing some more closure to the situation. This is a way, apparently. One not recommended by me or anyone here on Crime Talk. Let's just be absolutely clear. Closure means you delete them from your phone. You never call them back again. All right? Do that. Closure is never speaking to them again. Okay? Let's face it. If your old boyfriend or husband, ex-husband, you still communicate with your ex-husband, they're just looking at you as a hookup. You want closure? You block them. You never talk to them again. There you go. There's some Crime Talk dating tips for everybody. All right? Anyway, as a part of Mr. Dykes' plea agreement, he waived the right to appeal any verdict or sentence. And he was sentenced during a pretrial hearing that focused on his competency. And after a court-ordered evaluation of his mental faculties were complete and found that he was deemed to stand trial. Anyway, Mr. Dykes and Ms. Diaz were wed back in October of 2022, but their marriage would end, obviously, not so well. But at least they have some closure. It was alleged that on January 11th, 2023, Dykes' parents called 911 to report that they had found Ms. Diaz's mutilated body in a small cottage the couple lived in behind their home near Magnolia, Texas. which is about 45 miles northwest of Houston. Anyway, when the officers arrived at the scene, it was apparently a bloody mess. And Miss Diaz was found in a pool of blood next to the bed, with investigators noticing that she had suffered several stab wounds with a kitchen knife. It was also revealed that Miss Diaz's head, not found in the pool of blood, had become separated from her body and was found in the shower. Anyway, Mr. Dicus was then caught on surveillance going to the convenience store where his wife worked and stealing beer. He did this within hours of dismembering his wife. What can you say? Next, a juvenile tried as an adult. A juvenile judge has ruled that the teen accused in the murder of a Tennessee girl will stand trial as an adult. The 17-year-old Fernando Perez Mejia will have his case moved to adult court. Mejia is accused of killing Macon County teen Trinity Bostick. Now, Bostick's remains were found in Hendersonville in early July after she was reported missing in Macon County on June 29th. A Tennessee Department of Transportation subcontractor picking up trash along the side of the road in Hendersonville and found the remains on July 3rd. They were later identified as Miss Bostick. Now, Mr. Mejia was arrested and charged with the murder on July 6th. And a quick dumb criminal update. Do you remember this Ohio woman who threw a burrito at a Chipotle worker in a fit of rage and then blamed her behavior on being a Gemini? Well, she has completed the unusual court-ordered punishment. That's right. Do you remember Rosemary Haney? She was caught on camera throwing the burrito at the store manager in Cleveland. She was dissatisfied with the wait time. Anyway, she pled guilty to assault back in December, and the judge ordered her to work 20 hours per week at a fast food restaurant as punishment. Now, the first step for her was that she had to be able to find a fast food joint that was willing to hire her, given the fact that, she had a criminal history. Anyway, she ultimately did get a job, and she basically worked at Burger King, and she tried to treat everybody with respect. Now, it did take 7 job opportunities before she got Burger King to hire her, and she appreciated the opportunity, and she approached the job with a positive attitude, and she even had to deal with some rowdy customers. And one thing she has learned is the customer is always right. A little bit of that. Make that go around. Creative sentencing. That would be good. At least you didn't give a slash to somebody. Finally today, our dumb criminal of the day. All right. Imagine this. A couple, Sunday morning, and the spouse, a doctor, a dentist exactly, by the name of Isha Persad. And she's getting her husband Taco Bell and McDonald's for his birthday. During the early morning squabble, the good doctor allegedly threw a soft-shell taco at the birthday boy. Guess what? The taco struck the man on the right side of the face, according to the police reports. And when the patrol officers arrived, the burrito was still on the victim's face. The victim, who had been married to the doctor for 5 years, said he was not injured by the Taco Bell item, but after being read her rights, the doctor reportedly said she threw the burrito at the victim after he threw a bag at her, a claim that her husband denied. The doctor was arrested for domestic battery, a misdemeanor, and booked into the county jail, for which she was later released on her own recognizance. It's a little unclear who called the police in this particular situation, but I feel some closure coming on in this particular relationship. If a spouse is going to call the police on you, the relationship is over. If they're willing to put you in jail, you're going to jail. Okay? It's over. She should not have thrown the food, and he probably should have not called the police for the burrito, but he did. The relationship is over, ladies and gentlemen. If you're throwing food at people, if you're throwing food at your partner, your spouse, whatever, it's probably over. Closure is the word of the day. Closure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of closure, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, the Constitution matters.